Another week, another episode. Here I am, the one, the only, Mr. Phelps. Thank you all, thank you all, thank you all, and welcome to the Mr. Phelps Show. Thank you. Glad to have you here today. And, let's see. What are we doing today? We got coffee, of course. Hot off the press. That's right, that's right. And, what else? Oh, wait, I think I forgot my notes. This is not good. Alright guys, I will be right back, okay? I gotta grab my notes because I'm having a mind thing where I can't remember what I'm doing and I don't have my notes, so be right back. My golly, what just happened here? Oh my goodness. Better put this back. This is not good. This is not good. What? Did anybody see what happened? I mean, I get up for 1 minute just to get my notes, talk about today, and the whole set gets messed up. Like, how did this happen? This is aggravating. And where's my coffee mug? I mean, I can't have a show without coffee. I mean, that's what energizes me to talk on the talk show. I'm not Mr. Phelps without my coffee. This is not good. This is not good. Did anybody see what happened? Nobody? All right, this is bad. I need that coffee. We were going to go over some MLA citation today to show you specifically how to cite certain aspects, but without my coffee, without my sanity back, it's a little tough. I know what I need to do. All right, I'm going to call somebody. We need to figure out where everything went. Let me make some phone calls. I'll be back. Alright guys, I wish I knew what was going on. I wish I knew what was going on, but this was upturned. There's scratching and bite marks on my chair over here. There were books on the floor over here. This is a complete disaster, like a tornado went and wiped through this place, but something's fishy about this, and I need to make a call. I'm going to call my good detective named Detective Stache, because I need to figure out who's been prowling on the set of the Mr. Phelps show and who has my coffee mug. Like, this is not cool. So, give me 1 second. Hi, Mr. Stache, Detective Stache. This is Mr. Phelps from the Mr. Phelps show. I really need you to come here. We have something that just went on, and my show, my set was left a mess, and my coffee mug's gone. There's stuff all over the floor. My table was upturned, and no one knows what happened. I think somebody broke in and messed around with my set. So please come here as soon as you can. Thank you. All right. That's always not a fun invitation when you have to call somebody to fix up your set. But Detective Stache is a real detective. He's on top of his stuff, and he's my guy. Like, he can really help me out here and figure this out. Oh man, I'm craving coffee so much. It's so it's tough. Anyway, he should be rolling in like any minute now. Oh, I think he's coming now. Mr. Stache, my good friend, come. All right, take a seat. Thank you for coming on the Mr. Phelps show. I offer you some coffee, but apparently I don't have any. So I really feel sorry about that. I am Detective Stache, and I am here to investigate this crucial case of the Mr. Phelps show. I thank you for having me here as I try to keep my mustache on as best as I can. And I will tell you that I am very efficient. I will find the root of this problem and why your coffee mug is gone. I will cite my sources, and I will figure out who is to blame for this. Have no fear, Mr. Phelps. Leave it all to Detective Stache. Awesome. Well, thank you. We really need you to crack this case and figure out why my show was such a mess. Who's been messing around with me? I mean, this is not good stuff here. Like, we need to figure this out. We need to find the evidence of who was here. My viewers, I am here to tell you we are going to go through a series of different clues. We will cite each of these clues with evidence, and then we will determine who is responsible for this mess. They will have no fear with me around. I will figure it out. So, I think what you're telling me, Mr. Detective Stache, I think what you're telling me is that you're a prime detective and you're going to be looking at all the evidence surrounding this case, and then you're going to put a claim forward about who could be messing around with me while citing the evidence you have, right? So we're kind of like playing detective, if you think about it, because you're going to be evaluating the sources here, and evaluating the site, evaluating sources, finding out information. Then you're going to be citing where you got that information to make sure it's valid, and then you're going to be putting it together and cracking this case. I really appreciate this. That's what I hired you to do, and this is great, Detective Stache. Thank you for helping me out here. So, my viewers, I'm going to ask that you actually leave Mr. Phelps. We need it completely silent. We need to investigate the scene as is, and I can't have anyone around here. You may tamper with the evidence, and that would not be a good thing, right? So I must ask you to please leave, please adjourn, and I will get going on this investigation that is so crucial to your show. Okay? Alright, well, I better let you get to it then. I better get going, so I'll take my phone here, I'll give you a call in a bit, and I'm gonna go to a place where I can get some coffee, like, Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or somewhere. Just somewhere where I can get a little energy just to get myself back on my feet until you find that coffee mug. Anyway, take care. Thank you, guys. I'm going to turn over my show to Detective Stache for now. Thank you. So let's get to it. Alright, my fellow viewers, right here is a clue chart. We are going to write our clues on the piece of paper so we cite exactly where they were from and who the culprit was. Alright? So I'm looking around this room, and the one thing I notice is all the scratch marks. Further investigate this table. Very many scratch marks on this table. Even this chair. Lots of scratch marks, bite marks. Bite marks. That tells me it's not only been scratched, it's been bitten. Something's been eating at this chair. We must investigate further. Scratch marks on the couch. So clue number 1. We have scratch marks. And where do we cite it? Scene of the crime. Not much else we could say there, except that I could take some pictures of this and put them up to show these scratch marks. These are not typical scratch marks. They are very big scratch marks. It must be like a bear or something, or something very large. We know that much. We don't know what, but we know that it's not typical scratches. It's something big and something large that has caused the scratches here. And we must figure it out.
Alright, so here we are practicing with citation. And we're going to cite a crime scene or a real life scene. Normally, this is not something you'd cite in MLA, so there's no real set way to do it. So the best suggestion for you would be to take the regular MLA standard process, which is start with author, then go to title of source, title of container, and fill in what you know. So that's exactly what I did here. We don't have an author, so I filmed the source, the Mr. Phelps show, and I listed crime scene. And then I put the date that this happened so people know. Okay? And then this would be right here what I would put inside my essay with the internal citation. Upon entering the scene, there were scratches on the table, chair, and couch, as illustrated by the photographs. Bite marks were also present on the chair. In parentheses, the Mr. Phelps show. That's my in-text citation. Now, I could have cited the photos, but in this case, we're really looking at the scene itself, so I felt that that was the appropriate way to cite this. Again, a lot of it depends on situation, and it depends on what information you know. So there's not always a perfect way to do it, especially if it's something that's not so standard like this.
My, what do we have here? My viewers, I have a newspaper, and guess what's in it? The latest news about a monster prowling through the streets. They don't have all the ideas, they don't have all of what it looks like, but they know through second-hand account that there's a monster prowling through the streets, and quite a few people have recorded it. Bigfoot, Godzilla, we may never know. But we have a source right here that tells us there's a monster about. Now let's think. Monster, scratch marks, bite marks. Is it all related? Very well could be. Let's go to our clue chart. Clue Number 2. Monster sighting. Where do we get it from? Newspaper. And how do we cite that? We'll show you right now.
Alright, so here is a newspaper cited. As you can see up here, this is the typical format for citing a periodical, such as a magazine or a newspaper. It varies depending on the source, but generally you'd follow author, title, title of container, which would be the newspaper, and then so on and so forth. So this article was written by person random. So we start with the author, author's last name, random person, random comma person, period. Then we start with the article name right here, the newspaper, Big News Chronicles, the date, and then the page number. And then for our internal citation, in-text citation, this is where it gets a little trickier because we need to put the pieces together and present what we found. So as indicated in the article, monster sighting outside the studio of the Big News Chronicles, person random acknowledges that the silhouette was more than just a typical shadow and that there were visible claws protruding from what looked like an arm. As you can tell, I didn't say everything word for word. I put my own words around some of the words that person random said. So I quoted what he said specifically in quotes, but I filled in the rest of the sentence with my own words. And that's one of the best ways to cite. But in any case, however you do it, you just need to make sure you have all the pieces here and that you introduce it properly. You don't just place the quote or place the piece of information.
But I better keep reading. This is very good, and who knows, there might be more. So this newspaper article about monster sightings, they said people saw weird silhouettes of some big creature, but they weren't sure of color, they weren't sure of content or what it looked like, just big silhouettes of this creature. And we know we have the scratch marks and the bite marks. It got me thinking. We have two sources here. The actual scene of the crime and the newspaper article of monster sightings or big thing sightings or whatever you want to call it. Multiple witnesses said they saw this monster. Now, makes me wonder if I pull out a book about monsters, Monster Encyclopedia, and I go through it and I match the description of the scratches and the bite marks to the big silhouettes people said they saw, maybe, just maybe, 1 and 2 can go together and we have an idea about what kind of monster this is. Alright. So, I'm going to look through my library of books over here for a monster book, and I'm going to dig through the pages to see if we can get more evidence, to see if we can cite another source about this monster. Let's get to it. And here we are, looking at the book of monsters, trying to thumb through which one it could be. We've got a monster here called Abomination, but that almost looks too big compared to what the others said about monsters. I think if that one were noticed, people would pick up on it right away. But who knows? It says it is quite a powerful creature, but I don't see claws. I don't see how it could scratch. I just see bigness. Let's keep going. This one. Well, this one looks like a Wolverine type monster. It does have the claws to scratch, but it doesn't match the description of big silhouette, so we're getting closer, but not sure that's what the monster is. Let's keep looking. No, it doesn't say that it leaves scratch marks. We need to look a little more intently. Now that's a big guy, Hulk. Well, that is almost too big. Fits the description of big silhouette, but I don't know. In any case, it may not be one of these, or it may be all of these, but we got a lot of monsters in here. We got a lot of evidence of monsters it could be or could not be. I got a lot of descriptions. At least 20 of these monsters could have caused those big scratches. So, it's at least something. So, what do? We need to cite this. Let's put it in print. Use it as a clue, because this could get us and tell us closer to which monster it would be.
Alright, so here is the citation for a book. As you can see, it's last name, first name, title of book, city of publication, publisher, and publication date. Then there's a little note there. So the citation for the book we're reading, A Complete Book of Monsters, is by Joe Somebody. So we have Somebody Joe, A Complete Book of Monsters. Titanium is the publisher, and then 2005 is the year that the book was published. So I did this in-text citation a little bit differently. Instead of mentioning the person's name up front, I did it all as a quote and put the name in parentheses. So this is another way to do it. The mighty Hulk is a powerful monster that thrives when angered. He has the ability to thrust his arms at anything that gets in his way. In parentheses, somebody 54.
Alright, so here's where we are. We got a bunch of different monsters from this source. I can take a list of all the monsters that cause scratching and all the monsters that cause biting, and we can narrow them down, because it very well could be one of these monsters. So, let's go to our clue board now and write down the next clue. Clue number 3. Encyclopedia of Monsters. We're going to cite the book / encyclopedia. Alright, so we have 3 clues. We have the scratch marks and the bite marks that are at the scene of the crime. We have the newspaper article that cites they saw something big like a monster. And now we have this book that details a bunch of different kinds of monsters that our culprit could be. So now we need to take this to the next level, because we have not clarified what it is yet. We need more evidence. I've looked at 3 sources so far. Now, I've pulled a bunch of different monster pictures from sources throughout that have seen these monsters in reality. And I'm going to interview one of the witnesses from the newspaper article right here on the Mr. Phelps show, the set of the Mr. Phelps show. And we are going to see if he recognizes any of these monsters, and if he can tie it to this footprint that we see right here, because somebody found the footprint of the monster, or a large footprint in the middle of nowhere. It couldn't be a dog, it couldn't be something just regular. It is a massive footprint, so we know it must be a monster. We think it matches up to all these bite marks and scratch marks, because who else would do it? It's not a dog, it's a monster. So, I'm going to take this witness in, and I'm going to show him a series of pictures of monsters, and we are going to see which monster is guilty. Let's have him in, right now. Alright, I see our witness coming. Take a seat, take a seat. Hello. I must ask you, how are you doing today, random civilian who has discovered this monster or had a sighting of this monster? I must ask that.
Thank you, Detective Stache, for having me on the set. My name is Rex Marvel. Rex Marvel is the name, and yeah, I've had a great encounter with this monster. I mean, it was fantastic, and I'm glad to tell you everything about this. Gnarly dude.
Just so you're aware, let's get going. I have a series of pictures. Please tell me if any of these look like the monster you've seen or heard of. I know you haven't physically seen it completely, but see if it matches up to the footprint or to what you heard or what you saw. We need this evidence. Let's take out our first picture. We have a picture of what looks like a giant lizard. I think most people call it Godzilla. Look familiar?
Alright, so Mr. Stache there, as you can see, I'm an avid monster hunter. I go around trying to find all these monster sightings. I've been everywhere for like the Bigfoot sightings and everything. Like, that was totally awesome. And like, I'm wearing a Jurassic Park shirt, so you know I'm into like monsters and dinosaurs, and like this thing was like roar, and it was like, you know, I couldn't see it, but I saw the shadow and everything, and it was like gnarly, dude. It was totally cool. And like I could hear it and I saw it, and this thing was just like, you couldn't beat it. Like, the sound was like roar, and it was just so totally cool. So it was just amazing.
Yeah, it's quite big, but it matches the scratches that are on here. The size matches the scratches. We see big and green. A lot of people mentioned it was green. I don't know why I'm stuck on that, but they said it was big and green. Alright, so maybe that's too big, but let's move to the next one. King Kong. Now this goes against the greenness. It's more brownness and fur, but we did see fur remains on there. Okay, there were fur remains on the footprint, so we know that this monster had some kind of fur of some sort, unless that was just put there for some reason. But does it have the scratching capabilities? Who knows? King Kong doesn't look like it would. Which brings us to our next one. Bigfoot. Very similar. There have been Sasquatch sightings all throughout. Has Sasquatch finally made his way here? What do you think? Yeah, it's not typically a monster, and it doesn't necessarily match up with everything that was gone down, but Then we have Randall, the guy from Monsters, Inc., the bad guy. But he looks kind of scrawny to be one of those big monsters that comes and leaves his mark. I think you'd agree with me on that. And then we have this random alligator who walked through the golf course in Florida because it was so big and it's the natural habitat of an alligator. But I haven't seen any alligators around here, especially in the middle of winter, so we could probably rule that one out. And then, of course, the Grinch. We know this monster was not very nice, at least from what we told. We know it was a very unkind monster, just like the Grinch. We have green, we have fur. Could this be one of the monsters? Please, tell me, sir, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I can't honestly say that it looked like any of those monsters. I mean, like, this was a monster of its own, dude. I mean, it was totally cool. It looked like it was half of Bigfoot, but like half of the Grinch and then half of something else too, and it was kind of green in color. Like you're definitely right. It was green in color, and it was like just totally rad. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and it was just totally cool to see this thing, and it just was raw, and all I could see was a shadow, and I heard some gargling, like, and stuff like that, but it was pretty neat, and like, you wouldn't expect to see this thing, but it was none of those monsters you showed me. It was like a combination of them, but I bet you one of those could definitely help you find it or get on track of it. I mean, definitely. Gnarly, dude.
That is very good advice. That's very good feedback. Fortunately, it doesn't answer our case anymore to know that it could be any one of these or a combination of them. So you're telling me you think it's a new monster, something different, but something that's similar to these, just not one of these in particular. Excellent, excellent. But can we at least use these pictures to say, hey, the monster has several traits of these other monsters, because the pictures could be factual and help us understand parts of different monsters, and even if they don't match up to the same monster, the pictures are useful because they're pictures of monsters and they're similar in the way they carry themselves and in the type of shadows they cast upon the land and the footprints, and they're monsters. So these are typical monsters that we can use to prove our case that monsters look like these. Excellent. Well, I thank you for coming on the show and having an interview with us. I really appreciate it. And deciphering this task of ours to figure out where the monster is and who the culprit is. I really appreciate that. So, I want to wish you a good day, sir, and take care, and thank you for informing us all you could about these monsters. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for having me on the set here. I really appreciate it, and telling you, I mean, this monster thing is what I live for. I investigate monsters. I mean, I go out, I got my own binoculars, and I got the whole set and everything, and like, we try to like video these monsters like all the time and have like monster cams and stuff. So I'm going to try to get a video of this and like send it to you so you could see how cool this thing is, dude. I mean, it was just totally awesome, and like, I'm just an avid monster person, and I travel all over to find these monsters, and it's just so totally cool. Anyway, thank you for having me on the show, and hopefully you crack this case, and we have a new monster on our hands, and we can document it and go chasing around for it. I mean, this thing is a beast, man. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna get going, but thank you for having me on the set, and remember, it's Rex Marvel, and so if you need any of that data for to cite or whatnot, or for research, by all means, Rex Marvel at your service. Thank you. Take care. Take care. Take care, guys. Thank you.
So with that, my friends, I'm going to write down our fourth clue on our clue chart. Monster pictures. For this, we will cite pictures. Alright? We will cite pictures of all these monsters that we use, or at least one or two of them that we think is closest, so that we can match this to the footprint sighting, which we will also cite. So we can get closer to figuring out who this monster is that would do such a horrible thing as mess up the set of the Mr. Phelps show and steal his coffee mug. Sorry, I got a little angry there. An investigator needs to keep his cool, not get so angry. But it is a very stressful case. This monster is out on the loose and could hurt somebody else if we are not careful. So, we must be careful. We must really get moving on this. We have 4 clues, and we gotta keep going until we get this. Let's get to it.
Alright, so we actually have a couple sources we need to cite here. One for an interview and one for an image. Multiple ones for an image, but I'm just going to show you one. So for an interview, pretty simple. You list who you interview, last name, first name. You mention personal interview, and then you mention the date it happened. So right here, Marvel Rex personal interview, 15 February 2021. And then when you're in text citation, when you do that, you have to introduce the person you're interviewing, say something about them, and then cite it. So I put here, Rex Marvel, an avid monster hunter, mentions that this monster is not any of the ones shown. That being said, the monster does contain individual traits from the presented monsters. Then it's Marvel inside quotations. So as you can see here, I mentioned who I interviewed, but I also gave a little synopsis about what that person said was important. So citing an image is a little more complex. It's not that difficult though. Again, EasyBib can help you. Basically, when you cite an image, you're going to cite the website that the image came from, essentially. You give, unless the image has a specific title, you kind of do the website. So in my works cited, I should have all those images, but for the sake of showing you, I chose one, which was the alligator picture. I put the author's name, who is listed on the website. If there's a specific one for the image, you do that one instead. The website name, massive alligator spotted again on Florida golf course. I put the website name, ABC News, the publisher, which was also ABC News, when it was written, when it was posted, the link, and then when it was accessed by me. And that accessed is there just in case something changes. Then for the in-text citation, the monster is known to have similar traits to the alligator posted in this picture, such as being green in color and having sharp claws. Now, you could take out the part in this picture and just put similar traits to the alligator, such as being green in color and having sharp claws. It really depends on the context. Do you show the image in your essay, or do you just reference it? So you can kind of change that depending on how you use it, and that's basically it.
Ding, 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 ding. Oh, what's this? It's my phone, and it's ringing. But that's not all it is. It's dinging because I just received an email, and the email is showing me a sound file right here, and the sound file, let me play it. What is that? It sounds like gargling and spitting and swallowing. It sounds disgusting, like something I've never heard before. It's gotta be this monster. They say that this came from the scene where they heard this monster. One of the witnesses sent me it. A sound clip of this monster gargling, spitting, or something. They couldn't see it, but they heard it. They were cowering in their room. That's what the message says. And so, let me add this to our list of clues. Clue number 5. Sound recording and email. So, what does this mean? This now means we can take that list of monsters and narrow them down to the ones that gargle and spit and make these crunching noises, because not all of them do that. So we know from this voice recording and this evidence from the email that this monster makes these noises, and so it helps us eliminate it, narrow it down. to the certain monsters that can do that. Excellent. We've got ourselves clue number 5. We're getting closer to cracking this case.
Alright, so we're going to cite a sound clip and then cite the email where the sound clip was located. So first we have the author's name, Jane Doe, Doe Jane, and then we have in quotes, it could be in quotes or italics, I put it in quotes because it's small, monster noises. That was what the clip was called. It didn't have an actual name, so we gave it that name. That's what the topic was about. Then we listed personal sound recording and the date it was made. So personal sound recording 2021. Now keep in mind there is no specific way to cite a sound clip. It just has a bunch of generic online pieces of work such as article, image, sound recording. So you have to do the best you can here and to cite the digital format. In the in-text citation, I simply wrote, the monster makes several gargling and swallowing noises, and cited the sound clip with Doe's name in quotes. For an email, we're going to give the author, followed by the subject line in quotation marks, and then who received the message and the date. So if you look here, we have Doe Jane. Obviously, she wrote the email, so it's by her. Monster noises, that's what she used in the subject line. Received by Phelps Mr. I didn't want to put my real name, but normally you do last name, first name. And then the date it was received, 15 February 2021. All right, so that's a citation. Pretty simple. You basically have the last name, first name, the title, which is the subject line, who it was received by, and then the date. Now for the in-text, I did something a little bit different here. I cited it. Doe claims in her response that she heard many unusual sounds that she claims comes from the unseen monster. Now I already mentioned the author's name up front. So what I did in the parentheses is I put the subject line there so that people would be able to understand that it comes from the source of the email, since I didn't directly state that. Now you could mention the response and then put the author's name, or mention the subject line. Here it's better for the subject line because we have two sources from Doe and we want to differentiate between them. So that's why I have the subject line here.
But now I've got the biggest piece of evidence possible. Video footage of this monster on YouTube. Believe it or not, this monster has been found on YouTube. Somebody put it up on YouTube, and now we have evidence. We know what it looks like. We know how it gargles. We know how it spits. And we've got evidence. We know that this is the monster. Now we just have to find its cove and get the coffee mug back. So, let us add to our list of clues. Clue number 6. Monster video footage. And here now is the video footage of this monster prowling about. This is the biggest breakthrough we've had. Now we just need to track him down. Alright, my friends. Detective Stache believes he has enough information now that I can put this case in the books. I have 6 clues. The biggest one is this footage. I'm going to contact the proper authorities, and we're going to track down this monster. And we're going to find that coffee mug, Mr. Phelps' coffee mug, because no one ever messes with the Mr. Phelps show. I will tell you that as my mustache fights to stay on my face. So, I will locate the proper authorities, and we will track this monster down. I will show them these clues and cite to them to show them that I've found these sources and I've cited them accurately. I'll be back, and when I do, I'll have a coffee mug in my hands. Let's get going.
Alright, so now we're going to cite a YouTube video. As you can see here, video and audio sources need to be documented using the same basic guidelines for citing print sources in MLA style. A YouTube video is a little bit different than film, but film is a little bit, has its own style, but this one's a little bit different. So you want to include as much information as necessary, just like in any way to cite. And you also have the author's name and the uploader name, which could be the same or could be different. So you got to keep that in mind. So here's our citation. No Name John. Awesome monster footage. So No Name John is the name. Awesome monster footage is the title. We indicate that it's from YouTube, uploaded by Monster Hunter, 10 February 2021, and then we put the link. All right, so that's kind of the footage you will, or that's kind of the citation you will use for YouTube. Now for the in-text, I mentioned in the video titled Awesome Monster Footage, the monster is seen prowling in the snow. Put in parentheses, no name, author's name. And then I have another sentence. I didn't finish it here, but this sentence would go on and kind of bridge my analysis. So from this footage, the monster, ... Then I would go on to explain pieces of the video from what I mentioned. Alright, so now we're putting it all together, all 9 sources right here together in my work cited. Notice I alphabetized all my sources. We start with a C here, and the Mr. Phelps show is my last source because it's in alphabetical order. Notice here with Doe Jane, there's 2 sources from her with the same title. I hadn't noticed that before, but I use the same title. So if that's the case, you go to the next piece of information, and since P is before R, the personal sound recording gets listed before the received, okay, which was the email. So another thing you can notice is that I did hanging. For those that have multiple lines, I did hanging as you're supposed to do for the sources, okay, so there were only 3 I needed to utilize that. And then everything's in alphabetical order. All the sources are there, and that pretty much makes up my works cited page.
Look what I found. Look what I found, people. The coffee mug. The coffee mug. I've gotten enough evidence here. 6 clues, especially the video, that led us to the monster's lair. And then we snuck inside so quietly. And I found this little trinket there, the coffee mug. Mr. Phelps' coffee mug. It was hiding in there. We had to sneak around the monster when it was sleeping to get it. And he shouldn't bother us anymore. Let's hope not. In any case, this case is solved. I've told the proper authorities where the monster is located, and they will make sure he no longer comes to the set of the show again. So, all of this evidence here helped us to find this monster. And now, I need to write my case file for this case. And I need to cite my evidence here that claims that I used to find this monster. The evidence of the pictures and the files and the scratch marks and the scene of the crime to show that we had a monster attack, and I must cite it and use in-text citations to show where I got these pieces of information from. And Mr. Phelps can now have his coffee mug back. So, I thank you all for coming and playing detective with Mr. Stache. Detective Stache, that is. And I'm going to quietly leave the scene, and I will alert Mr. Phelps to come back and see to his coffee mug and the evidence here. It has been a great case, and I thank you all for watching, and hopefully you become better at citing evidence now within your own papers and within your own assignments and within your own detective investigations. I thank you. I must get going now. My next case is coming to me, and I must be there and be timely, because that's who I am, Detective Stache. I thank you all. Thank you. It's coffee time. Coffee time. Thank you, Mr. Detective Stache. This is great. You really solved my case. You helped me out this time. I got my coffee mug back and filled with coffee. Excellent. You know, it's pretty amazing how it fills so fast. Like I wasn't even here and it was filled with coffee. Amazing. But thank you, Detective Stache. This is great. Anyway, I think Detective Stache did a good job of showing you guys sources, how to find sources, evaluate sources, and do a little bit of citing here and there. So I think you got the idea of how we have an MLA Works Cited page and how we cite and use in-text citations. So all of this stuff is so useful and so good, just like this coffee. Anyway, they caught the culprit. It was just this Grendel monster running around, or actually somebody in a monster suit just pretending to mess around with me. But they caught him. They got him in an area where he's not going to cause trouble, and it's all good. And you know, I'm going to be on the watch now too with coffee. Anyway, tune in for the different writing topics this week. We'll get those going with you, and working on MLA Works Cited and some evaluating sources, and we're good to go. But this is still great coffee right here. Anyway, I don't have much else to say. My show was kind of taken over, and it's all good. But I just want to say bye to all my viewers. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time on the Mr. Phelps Show with coffee. Thank you everyone. Take care now.